Nobody told you the most important thing about the blood moon. Not the prophecy channels. Not the pastors who quoted Joel 2:31 like they had been waiting their whole careers to say it out loud. Not the astronomers who tracked its arc across the sky with the precision of people who understand everything about the event and nothing about what it means. They all told you to look up. Nobody told you to look down. Down at the paper sitting on heaven's desk. Down at the file that was open the moment that moon turned red. Down at the document that has your name on it, not as a spectator, not as a witness, but as a party to a case that has been building for longer than you have been alive.
You cannot comprehend.
Here is what they missed. In the ancient world, a blood moon was not a wonder. It was not a moment for all and photographs and social media posts that disappear in 48 hours. It was a summons. A legal document delivered by the sky itself. The kind that does not ask whether you are ready. The kind that arrives whether watching or not and starts a clock the moment it lands. That clock is running right now. And the cord it opened is not somewhere in the future. It is not waiting for a more convenient season. It is not on hold until the world settles down or the politics calm or your circumstances improve. The court is already in session. 5 judges have already taken their seats. 5 voices that most of your Sunday school curriculum never reached, buried in the back of a Bible that most people closed before they get to the part that changes everything. Joel, Obadiah, Haggai,
I bear
Malachi,
witness to the end of an
Zechariah.
age.
5 prophets who saw this exact moment not as a sign to admire, but as a proceeding to participate in. And participation is the word that matters. Because here is the thing about a court that nobody tells you. The verdict does not go to the people who watched the most carefully from the gallery. It goes to the people who showed up with documentation, who understood the charges, who knew which side of the room they were supposed to be standing on and walked to it before the judge called their name. Most people watch the blood moon from the gallery. This video is for the ones who are ready to walk to the front of the room. Over the next 40 minutes, I am going to take you through 5 prophetic voices like 5 layers of the same architectural drawing, each one adding a wall, a foundation, a doorway that the others cannot show you alone. But when you hold all 5 together and let the light of that red moon shine through them,
the alignment,
what you see is not a mystery. It is a blueprint. And you are not here to admire it. You are here to build. This is what we do on this channel. We do not stop at the sign.
By the ancients,
we read with the sign open. Stay with me, because by the time we reach the verdict, you will never look at a blood moon, or a closed door, or a season of silence the same way again. Before we open the first file, I need to ask you something that nobody in the prophecy space ever asks. Who is the plaintiff? Every court case has one. Someone who suffered a loss.
I cannot make it
Someone
live.
who documented the damage. Someone who walked into the building, laid the evidence on the table,
You are a deceiver.
and said this was taken for me,
Look what
and I
you've
am
done
here to
the
prove
innocent.
it. Most people who talk about Joel 2:25 talk about the promise. God
Fear
will
not,
restore the years
for
the
you are
locusts
home.
have eaten. They quote it like a fortune cookie, like a motivational poster you hang above your desk and look at when the week gets hard. They never asked the question underneath the promise. What exactly was eaten? Because you cannot file a restitution claim for a number you have never calculated. You cannot walk into a courtroom and say a lot was taken and expect the judge to rule in your favor. The law does not work on approximations. It works on documentation. Itemized. Specific. Provable. Joel was not writing poetry. Joel was filing a case. And the case begins not in chapter 2 where everyone starts, but in chapter 1, where almost nobody goes. Joel 1-4. What the cutting locust laughed, the swarming locust has eaten. What the swarming locust laughed, the crawling locust has eaten. What the crawling locust laughed, the consuming locust has eaten. 4 locusts, 4 waves, 4 distinct phases of a destruction so systematic, so sequential, so precise that it cannot be accidental. This is not a natural disaster. This is a coordinated extraction. Let that word sit for a moment. Extraction. The first locust, the Gazam, the cutting locust, does not eat the fruit. It strips the bark. It goes after the infrastructure first. The thing that protects the tree. The thing that allows everything else to grow. Strip the bark and the tree is still standing. Still looks like a tree from a distance. But it is already dying and it does not know it yet. The second locust, the Arbeh, the swarming locust, arrives after the bark is gone. Now it eats the leaves, the visible growth, the things the tree was producing that the world could see. By the time the swarming locust is finished, the tree looks skeletal, exposed, like something that used to be alive. The third locust, the Yeleq, the crawling locust, takes the fruit. Whatever the tree managed to produce, despite everything. Whatever survived the first 2 waves. The crawling locust moves low, close to the ground, and it is patient. It does not rush. It waits until the fruit drops and then it consumes it before anyone else can reach it. And the fourth locust, the Hasil, the consuming locust, takes whatever is left. The roots, the seeds, the possibility of a next season. This is not just destruction of what exists. This is the elimination of what could exist. This is a locust that reaches into the future and empties it. 4 waves. Each one targeting what the previous one missed. Now here is where I need to step out of the ancient text for a moment and speak directly. Because Joel was not writing about insects. The scholars who have studied this passage for centuries have noted something that your average Sunday sermon never reaches. The Hebrew words Joel uses for these 4 locusts are not standard agricultural terms. They are rare, almost forensic, in their specificity. As if Joel was not describing a natural phenomenon at all, but categorizing a type of loss that goes beyond crops and fields. Joel was describing what happens to a people when everything that sustains them is systematically removed. Not in one catastrophic moment, but in waves. Each wave calibrated to consume what the previous wave left standing. Each wave arriving before the recovery from the last one is complete. And the people Joel was writing to knew exactly what he meant. They had watched it happen, generation by generation, wave by wave. until the fields were dust, until the priests had nothing left to put on the altar, until the question that haunted every family in the valley was not when will this end, but does God even see this?
I cannot.
That question is the heart of the case.
I cannot.
Because here is what the prosecution has to prove in any restitution claim. Not just that the loss happened, but that the loss was witnessed, that the one with the authority to restore it has knowledge of what was taken. And Joel answers that question before the plaintiff even finishes speaking. Joel 2:25. The Lord says, I will restore. Not I will consider. Not I will evaluate the claim. Not I will appoint a committee to review the documentation. I will restore. The Hebrew word is shalom, and shalom is a legal term. It means to make whole, to pay back in full, to return to the original state, not approximately, not partially, not eventually, but completely. It is the same root as shalom, which means that the peace God promises is not the absence of conflict. It is the presence of wholeness, the state of having everything that was taken returned. This is not a comfort. This is a verdict. And the blood moon, according to Joel's own sequence, is the celestial announcement that the verdict has been issued. Look at the order in Joel chapter 2. The call to return, the promise of restoration, the outpouring of the Spirit, and then verse 31, the blood moon. The moon turned to blood before the great and awesome day of the Lord. The blood moon does not open the case. The blood moon announces that the ruling has already been made, which means the question is not whether the verdict exists. The question is what you do in the window between the announcement and the execution of the ruling.
Something's here.
Courts do not deliver verdicts to empty rooms. Someone has to be present to receive it. And here is my own perspective, the one I cannot prove in a footnote, but I cannot ignore in good conscience. Every person watching this video has a locus list, not a metaphor. An actual inventory of what was stripped, devoured, consumed across the seasons of your life. The relationship that the cutting locust took before you understood what you had. The opportunity the swarming locust ate while you were still recovering from the first loss. The harvest the crawling locust reached before you did. The future the consuming locust emptied before you had a chance to plant it. You know your list. You have been carrying it. Joel is not asking you to forget it. Joel is asking you to file it. Because a verdict without a claim, it is just a piece of paper in an empty courtroom. The court is in session. The ruling is on the table. And the first thing the judge needs from you is not your faith.
Keep these words close.
It is
for
your
they hold the
documentation
truth of what is to come.
There is a witness in this court that nobody wants to call to the stand. Not because the testimony is weak, because it is too accurate, because it names something that most people would rather leave unnamed. Because when this witness speaks, the person it identifies is not always the enemy you expected. Sometimes it is you. His name is Obadiah, and he wrote the shortest book in the entire Bible. 21 verses. No wasted words. No pastoral softening. No extended introduction to cushion the blow. Just 21 verses of the most precise testimony in all of prophetic scripture, aimed not at the army that swung the sword, but at the people who stood on the hill and watched. Let me set the scene. Because context is everything in a courtroom. Jerusalem is burning. The walls have been breached. Families are running through the smoke carrying whatever they can hold in two hands. Children are screaming names that nobody answers. And on the high ground to the east on the hills of Mount Seir, where the view is clear and the danger is distant, the Edomites are watching. Not helping. Watching. Obadiah verse 11. On the day you stood aloof while strangers carried off his wealth and foreigners entered his gates, you were like one of them. Like one of them. Not because they lit the fire. Not because they carried a weapon. Because they chose the hill over the valley. Because they calculated the cost of involvement and decided the view was safer than the risk. And heaven counted the choice as participation. Now here is where this testimony takes the turn that nobody sees coming.
Where am I?
Most teachers who
What am I
preach
doing here?
Obadiah use
Why
Edom
can't I
as a
remember
mirror for
anything?
an external enemy. The system that watched. The institution that stood aloof. The power structure that calculated the cost
agree.
of intervention and chose
proceed.
comfort instead. And that reading is not wrong.
No,
It is accurate.
this is not it.
It is important. But it
Back
is
to the
incomplete.
furnace.
Because Obadiah was not writing about strangers. He was writing about family. Edom descends from Esau. Israel descends from Jacob. Same father. Same womb. Same blood running through veins on both sides of the valley. The betrayal Obadiah describes is not the betrayal of an enemy. It is the betrayal of a brother who decided that his elevated position was more valuable than his brother's survival. And that detail, that specific, uncomfortable detail, is the reason I said this witness names something most people would rather leave unnamed. Because the question Obadiah puts to every person in this courtroom is not only who in your life is playing Edom. The question is, where in your own life are you the one on the hill? Stay with me. Because this is not an accusation. This is a diagnostic. Every one of us has a valley we have been avoiding.
You shouldn't have done
A conversation we have been watching from a safe distance. A relationship where someone we love is losing ground and we have calculated consciously or not that the cost of descending is higher than the comfort of staying elevated. A community we grew up in that we quietly left behind when our own circumstances improved.
God, the stench.
A calling we
can't
saw
breathe.
clearly from the hillside and chose not to answer because the smoke looked too thick from up there. Obadiah is not asking whether you are a good person. He is asking a more surgical question. What did you do with your position when someone in the valley needed it? And here is the theology that most teachers skip entirely. Edom's sin was not hatred. Edom did not hate Israel. There is no record of Edom cheering at the destruction. No record of celebration. No record of malice. Edom simply did nothing. And in the economy of Obadiah's courtroom, nothing is not neutral. Nothing is a verdict. Nothing is a choice that heaven records with the same precision as an action. Verse 14 makes it worse. You should not have stood at the crossroads to cut off his fugitives. You should not have handed over his survivors in the day of their distress.
Whoa, wait!
The Edomites did not just watch.
No!
At some point, watching became blocking. The passive distance became an active barrier. The people who fled Jerusalem, who survived the breach and ran toward any road that led away from the fire, found Edomites at the crossroads. Not soldiers, watchers who had spent so long on the hill that by the time the survivors reached them,
They are coming.
neutrality had quietly
We must
become
prepare.
collaboration.
Send word to the south.
This is the progression
The king's forces
Obadiah
are
is
vulnerable.
documenting for the court. Stage 1, you stood aloof. Stage 2, you watched with something closer to satisfaction and grief. Stage 3, you were at the crossroads when the survivors came. Stage 4, you handed them back. 4 stages. From distance to complicity. And not one of them required picking up a weapon. Now, the verdict. Obadiah verse 17. But on Mount Zion there shall be deliverance, and it shall be holy. And the house of Jacob shall possess their own possessions. Their own possessions.
You will not
Not
take
borrowed.
This. It is
Not
mine.
temporary. Not conditional on the generosity of whoever currently controls the crossroads. Their own. The Hebrew word is morashah, inheritance. Permanent. Covenantal. Generationally transferable. The same word
spoken.
God used in Exodus when he promised the
oath
land to
is
a people
binding.
who had spent 4 centuries with nothing to their name. Here is what Obadiah is depositing into the record of this court. 2 documents filed simultaneously. Document 1, a reckoning against every version of Edom that chose the hill. Document 2, a title deed for every version of Jacob that endured the valley. And both documents are activated in the same window. This is my own reading and I offer it as one voice, not as final theology. But what strikes me every time I sit with Obadiah is this. The prophet does not end with anger. He ends with inheritance. The 21 verses that begin with the most searing indictment in prophetic literature close not with destruction but with possession. As if Obadiah understood something about the architecture of divine justice that our courts have not yet figured out. The goal was never punishment. The goal was always restoration of what belonged to the people in the valley. And the reckoning against the hill is simply what has to happen to clear the road to the valley so the inheritance can be claimed. Which means the most important
late.
question Obadiah
You are
leaves you
late.
with is not who wronged you. It is, are you ready to come down from whatever hill has been keeping you safe and walk into the valley where your morashah is waiting? Because the verdict has been filed. The title deed exists. And the window between the filing and the possession is exactly the length of the season you are standing in right now.
I am waiting.
Which prophet has landed hardest
Answer me.
free so far?
I need
Drop it in the
truth.
comments. Tell me, are you filing a claim? Or are you still on the hill? Because this conversation is too important to have alone. The third witness does not arrive with a verdict. He arrives with a hammer. His name is Haggai.
Move them.
And he is the only
I will not
prophet
have
in
this
the
city
entire
crumble.
Bible whose sole
Work
assignment
faster.
was construction. Not comfort. Not condemnation. Not a vision of distant glory that you can admire from a safe theological distance. Haggai was sent to a group of people who had already been through the fire, who had survived the exile, crossed the desert, returned to the land, and told them one
No
thing.
further.
Stop building the wrong thing. Let me give you the situation on the ground. Because context changes everything. The year is approximately 520 BC. A community of formerly captive people have just come home from Babylon. The decree of Cyrus has been signed. The resources have been allocated. The road back has been walked. They are free. They are home. The window is open. And 16 years pass. 16 years. And the temple, this structure that represents their collective identity, their covenant purpose, their communal future, is still a field of broken stones with weeds growing through the foundation. It is not because they are lazy. That is the assumption most people make, and it is wrong. These people are building constantly. They are working hard. They are productive and skilled and motivated.
That is not how it is
They
done.
are just building in the wrong direction.
This is all wrong.
Haggai 1-4. Is it time for you yourselves to dwell in your paneled houses while this house lies in ruins? Paneled houses. The Hebrew word is saffron wood that has been cut, shaped, fitted, finished. This is not survival shelter. This is intentional comfort. These are houses that took time and skill and resources to build. Houses that announce, I have made it. I am established. I am no longer a refugee. And God looks at those houses and asks a question that cuts deeper than any accusation. Is it time? Not how dare you build for yourselves. Not you are selfish and wrong.
Who
Just
sent
is
you
it
here?
time? Is this the right moment for this particular building? Are you sure that what you are constructing right now is the thing this season is calling for? That question is still the most dangerous question in the book of Haggai. Because it does not attack your effort. It interrogates your direction. Now here is the part that nobody preaches. And I think it is the most important part of Haggai's testimony in this court. Why were they building the wrong thing? The easy answer is comfort. The easy sermon is they got distracted by their own desires and forgot about God's house. Repent and redirect. Simple. Clean. Comfortable for the preacher and forgettable by Tuesday. But I do not think that is the real answer. And Haggai gives us a clue that most people read past without stopping. Haggai 2-3. Who is left among you who saw this house in its former glory? How do you see it now? Is it not as nothing in your eyes? As nothing. There were people in the community who remembered Solomon's temple, who had stood inside it as children and felt the weight of something so large, so magnificent, so far beyond anything they could have built with their own hands, that when they looked at the rubble on the ground and tried to imagine building something worthy of replacing it, the gap between what was and what they could produce felt insurmountable. They were not building the wrong thing because they were selfish. They were building the wrong thing because they had been taught by exile, by captivity, by decades of being told their highest aspirations were too high, that they were not the kind of people who built temples. They were the kind of people who built houses, survival structures, functional, adequate, safe, not sacred, not communal, not generational. And here is where Haggai steps into this court as a witness unlike any other, because he does not argue with their limitation. He does not debate their theology. He does not produce evidence that they are capable of more. He just gives them an instruction. Haggai 1-8. Go up to the mountain. Bring wood. Build the house.
Yes.
3 commands. No explanation of how the gap will be closed. No architectural plan for how a community with limited resources will construct something worthy. No guarantee that the result will be beautiful or impressive or worthy of the memory they are carrying. Just go, bring, build. And then immediately after the instruction, a promise so specific it functions like a legal contract. Haggai 2:19. From this day on I will bless you. From this day. Not from the day you feel qualified. Not from the day the resources look sufficient. Not from the day the gap between what was and what you can build stops feeling humiliating. From the day you pick up the first piece of wood and start moving toward the mountain.
Come on.
This is the testimony that changes the architecture of everything else in this court. Because Joel told you to file the claim. Obadiah told you to come down from the hill. But Haggai tells you what to do with your feet once they hit the valley floor. Build. Not perfectly. Not impressively. Not with resources you do not yet have. Build with what is in your hands on the day you decide the window matters more than the gap. Now here is my own perspective, and I say this as someone who has spent a long time studying the distance between what people believe about themselves and what they actually do with their days. The paneled house is not always a physical structure. Sometimes the paneled house is the comfortable explanation for why this is not the right season. The perfectly reasoned argument for why the resources are not yet sufficient. The theological framework that keeps you warm and furnished and insulated from the specific discomfort of building something that outlasts you. Haggai is not asking you to abandon comfort. He is asking you to sequence it correctly. Build the house that matters first. And watch what God does with the house you live in afterward. Because the promise was not build the temple and I will give you a better house. The promise was build the temple and I will shake the heavens. Haggai 2-6. In a little while I will shake the heavens and the earth and the sea and the dry land. The shaking is not a warning. The shaking is God responding to construction. Heaven moves when people build the right thing. And the thing that was shaken loose from the heavens lands in the house that was built in obedience, not in the paneled house that was built in comfort. From this day, the line is drawn. The date is set. The blessing is not attached to a feeling or a season or a favorable set of circumstances. It is attached to a foundation. And the only question Haggai leaves on the table of this court is the same question the angel asked Zechariah before the night vision began.
Do you truly believe you are ready
What
for
do you
this
see?
responsibility?
Do you see rebel, or do you see the first stone of something that will outlast every system that told you the gap was too wide to cross? Because Haggai drew a line in the calendar and said everything before this line is the bag with poles. Everything after this line is the blessing. And the line is not in 520 BC. The line is today. Every court has a moment where the proceedings stop being procedural, where the documents are set aside, where the arguments pause, where something happens in the room that is not about evidence or verdict or a legal strategy, but about the person standing in the middle of it all and whether they are actually ready to carry what the ruling is about to hand them. In this court, that moment belongs to Malachi. He is the last prophet of the Old Testament. After he speaks, heaven goes silent for 400 years. No vision, no voice, no angel arriving at midnight with instructions that cannot wait until morning. Just silence. Which means whatever Malachi said last was weighted with everything that silence would cost. And what he said was not comfortable. Malachi treated too. He is like a refiner's fire and like launderer's soap. A refiner's fire. Most people hear that phrase and picture destruction. Something burning down. Something being consumed and lost. And I understand why, because fire in the ancient imagination was almost always associated with judgment, with the end of something. But a refiner's fire is the opposite of destruction. A refiner's fire is the most precise, the most patient, the most intentional use of heat in the ancient world. And the difference between a fire that destroys and a fire that refines is not the temperature. It is the presence of the one sitting in front of it. Let me show you what I mean. In the ancient world, a silversmith working with raw ore did not simply apply heat and walk away. The process required constant attendance. The crucible had to be monitored at exactly the right temperature, hot enough to separate the impurities from the metal, not so hot that the metal itself was damaged. Too low and the dross stays embedded. Too high and what you are trying to save gets destroyed in the process of saving it. So the refiner sat and watched and waited. He skimmed the surface as the dross rose, the worthless material that heat pulls upward and separates from what is valuable. He worked with tools no larger than a spoon. Patient, precise, removing what did not belong one layer at a time. And here is the detail that stopped me the first time I encountered it in the scholarship on this passage. The ancient silversmiths had one test for knowing when the refining was complete. Not a thermometer. Not a chemical analysis. One test. They looked into the surface of the molten metal. And when the face reflected back at them was their own clear, undistorted, unmistakable, the process was finished. The refiner knew the silver was pure when he could see himself in it. Malachi is not describing a process of punishment. He is describing the most intimate act of craftsmanship in all of Scripture. A God who sits in front of the fire, who does not leave, who does not look away, who works with the precision of someone who knows exactly what is buried in the ore and exactly what temperature is required to bring it to the surface without destroying what he is trying to reveal, and who does not stop until he can see his own face reflected in yours. That is not destruction. That is the most personal thing God does. Now here is the part of Malachi's testimony that most teachers reach past in their hurry to get to, the tithing verse. Because Malachi 3:3 tells us something about the purpose of the fire that changes the entire frame of what we think the window is for. He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver, and he will purify the sons of Levi and refine them like gold and silver, till they present offerings to the Lord in righteousness. The purpose of the fire is not to break you. The purpose is to prepare you to carry something. You cannot carry sacred things with contaminated hands. The refining is not the destination, it is the preparation for the destination. The fire cleans what needs to be cleaned so that when the verdict is executed and the inheritance is transferred and the blueprint becomes a building, the person holding it is actually ready for the weight of it. And here is my own perspective, the one I cannot leave out of this testimony, because it is the thing that keeps me up at night when I sit with this passage honestly. Most of us have been praying for the window to open, for the sign to arrive, for the season to shift, for the thing we have been waiting for to finally show up. But very few of us have been praying for the refiner's fire, because the refiner's fire does not feel like preparation. It feels like the opposite of what we asked for.
I believed you would understand.
It arrives in the form of the relationship that exposes what we thought was healed. The opportunity that reveals the fear we thought we had outgrown.
Make it stop!
The season of pressure that brings to the surface exactly the beliefs about ourselves that we buried so carefully we forgot they were there. The dross does not rise on comfortable days. It rises when the heat is right. And the heat being right is not a punishment. It is a sign that the refiner is present, that he has not abandoned the process, that he is sitting in front of the crucible at exactly the temperature this particular ore requires, watching, skimming, removing what was never meant to stay. Malachi understood something about divine timing that our theology of blessing has almost entirely lost. The window was not just the space where the promise is received.
Keep lifting.
The window is the space where the person who will carry the promise is made ready to receive it. Joel opened the case file. Obadiah called you down from the hill. Haggai handed you the first piece of wood. And Malachi, the last voice before 400 years of silence, sits you down in front of the fire and says this before you take another step. What is still in you that does not belong there? What belief about your own limitations has been embedded so long it feels like identity rather than impurity? What habit? What theology? What story about yourself did the locusts plant that the restoration is going to require you to put down before you can pick up what is coming? Because the refiner is not asking you to answer those questions for him. He already knows. He has been watching the ore since before you understood you were in the crucible. He is asking because the act of naming the dross, of looking at the surface of the fire and saying yes, that needs to go, is part of what the refining requires from the metal. The silver does not purify itself, but it does not resist the process either. And when the refining is complete, when the last layer of dross has been skimmed, and the surface of the metal is still and clear, the refiner looks in. And what he sees looking back is not the raw ore that entered the crucible. It is himself. If the refiner's fire is burning in your life right now, if this
Listen to me,
season
you
has
must
brought
believe
things
this,
to the surface
for
that
time
you
is
did not
short,
expect, share this
the world
video
needs
with
you.
someone who is in the heat and does not know the refiner never left his seat. They need to hear this. We have arrived at the final witness, and I need to warn you before he speaks. Because what Zechariah saw in a single night vision is going to do something to the way you understand every other testimony in this court. It is going to reach back through Joel and Obadiah and Haggai and Malachi and reframe all of it, not by contradicting what they said, but by revealing the engine underneath everything they described. And the engine is not what you think it is. Zechariah 4:1. The angel roused him like a man awakened from sleep. Not gently. The text does not say the angel appeared or spoke or touched his shoulder. It says roused. The same word used for shaking someone out of unconsciousness. because what Zechariah was about to see could not be received in a half-awake state. The vision required full presence, full attention, the kind of wakefulness that only arrives when something grabs you and pulls you out of wherever you were. The angel asks him, "What do you see?" And Zechariah described something that has puzzled scholars for 25 centuries. A golden lampstand, solid gold, 7 lamps burning on it, 7 channels feeding oil to the 7 lamps, and on either side of the lampstand 2 olive trees, living trees, growing trees, trees that are continuously pouring oil through golden pipes directly into the lampstand without any human hand touching the process. No priestry filling the reservoir. No committee deciding when the oil gets replenished. No system of management or maintenance or oversight. The trees produce. The oil flows. The lamp burns. The whole structure is self-sustaining because the source is alive. Zechariah does what any honest person would do.
Who are
He
you?
asks, "What are these,
What do you want
my
from
Lord?"
me?
And the angel gives him the answer that has become one of the most quoted sentences in the entire prophetic
I
library.
hear you.
Zechariah 4-6. "Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit, says the Lord of hosts." Everyone quotes that verse. Almost no one reads what comes immediately before it,
You must
because the
understand
verse
this.
is not a general
Right
encouragement.
here. This
It is a
the
specific
truth.
explanation. The angel is not giving Zechariah a motivational principle for hard seasons. The angel is explaining the mechanism of the vision. He is telling Zechariah how the lampstand stays lit, how the oil keeps flowing, how the system works without human maintenance, not by might. The Hebrew word is kayil, military strength, economic force, accumulated human resource. Not by the size of what you have built or the power of what you can mobilize. Not by power. The Hebrew word is coach, personal ability, individual effort, the grinding force of will applied over time. Not by working harder or longer or more efficiently than the system that surrounds you, but by my Spirit. The Hebrew word is ruach, breath, wind, the invisible force that moved over the waters in Genesis before anything existed. The same ruach that filled the valley of dry bones and turned a graveyard into a standing army. The same ruach that fell at Pentecost and transformed a room full of frightened people into the most disruptive force the ancient world had ever encountered. The lampstand burns on ruach, not on human effort dressed up in spiritual language, on the actual breath of God moving through a system that was designed to carry it. Now here is the twist. The one I promised you at the beginning of this video. The one that reframes everything. The 2 olive trees are not a symbol of strength. Read the vision again carefully. The trees are not the light. The trees are not the destination. The trees are not even the point of the vision. The trees exist for one reason: to pour oil into the lampstand. They are not the source of the light. They are the channel through which the source reaches the light. And Zechariah 4:14 identifies them as the 2 anointed ones who stand
I saw a
beside the
menorah
Lord of all the
glowing like
earth.
fire between 2 olive
Anointed
trees.
ones,
They poured
not
oil
powerful
directly into
ones.
the branches.
not mighty ones, not the ones who built the largest platform or accumulated the most resources or achieved the most impressive results by human measurement. anointed ones, people through whom something
divine
flows
energy
that did
flows
not
through me.
originate in them. This is
I
the distinction
am
that
the
changes
conduit.
everything about how you enter this 30-day window. Because the entire testimony of this court, from Jill's case file to Obadiah's title deed to Haggai's construction command to Malachi's refining fire, has been building toward this moment.
I cannot.
This
I cannot bear this
clarification,
weight alone.
this specific correction of the assumption that most people carry into a season of promise without realizing it, is the thing that will exhaust them before the building is finished. You are not the source. You were never meant to be the source. The pressure you feel to generate enough faith, enough effort, enough resources, enough strategy to close the gap
No.
between where you are
It
and
will
where the
never
verdict
work.
says you should be,
This
that
system is
pressure is
broken.
not from the God who designed the lampstand. That pressure is from a system that wants you to believe the oil has to come from you. It does not. The oil flows from the trees. The trees pour because they are alive and rooted and connected to something beneath the surface that no drought and no season and no amount of external pressure can reach. And the lampstand burns not because of what the trees accomplish, but because of what moves through them. You are the lampstand. Your household. Your community, your generation. The light that burns in you is not generated by your effort. It is carried by your availability. And here is the question that Zechariah leaves in the record of this court,
Consequences of your choice.
the one that I believe is the real verdict of this entire proceeding. Not are you strong enough? Not do you have enough? Not have you done enough to deserve what the window is offering? The question is, are you connected to the source? Because a lampstand that is structurally perfect but disconnected from the trees is just an expensive piece of gold sitting in the dark. And a person who has filed the claim and come down from the hill and picked up the wood and endured the fire but is running on Yeleq, coach instead of ruach, will burn out before the building is finished. The mountain moves not because the builder is strong enough to push it. Zechariah 4-7. What are you, O great mountain? Before Zerubbabel you shall become a plain. The mountain moves because the builder is connected to the one for whom mountains are plains. And the capstone, the final stone that completes the building, arrives not with a war cry but with something far more disorienting to everyone who expected force. Grace. Grace to it. Shouted. Repeated. As if once is not enough to make the point. Not might. Not power. Grace. The unearned, undeserved, unexplainable favor of a God who called you into this window before you understood what a window was. Who wrote your name into a verdict before the locusts finished their first wave. Who sat in front of the fire while you were still raw, or who designed a lampstand specifically shaped to carry the light that only your particular anointing can hold. 5 prophets. 5 testimonies. 1 verdict. The court has ruled. The window is open. The oil is flowing. The only remaining question, the one that does not belong to the judge or the witnesses or the ancient texts or the blood moon that announce the proceedings, is whether you are going to let it flow through you. We started in a courtroom, not a metaphor, not a poetic device. A real proceeding with witnesses, with documentation, with a verdict that was written before the blood moon announced it and will stand long after the headlines move on to the next sign in the sky. 5 witnesses took the stand. Joel laid the case file on the table. Every locust year itemized. Every wave of extraction documented. And a restitution order issued by a God who does not offer sympathy, he issues rulings. Obadiah called the room to account. Not just the ones who swung the sword, but the ones who chose the hill, who calculated the cost of descent and decided the view was safer than the valley. And then he filed a title deed. Morashah, permanent, covenantal, yours. Haggai handed you the wood, drew a line in the calendar and said, from this day, not from some day, not from the day the gap stops feeling impossible, from the day you pick up the first stone and start moving toward the mountain. Malachi sat you down in front of the fire and did not leave. Because the refiner who knows your name also knows exactly what temperature this particular ore requires. And he does not stop until he sees his own face reflected in the surface of what you are becoming. And Zechariah showed you the engine underneath everything. 2 trees, 1 lampstand, oil that flows not from your effort, but through your availability. A mountain that becomes a plain not because you were strong enough to move it, but because you were connected to the one who designed the terrain. The verdict has been read. The window is open. And the only thing left, the only thing that has ever been left at the end of every prophetic proceeding in all of Scripture is what you do with your feet in the morning. Not next month. Not when the circumstances improve. Not when you feel ready. Tomorrow morning. Because Haggai said, from this day. And this day does not wait for a more convenient season. The court has ruled in your favor. Now go build something worthy of the verdict. If this moved you, share with someone who needs to hear that the court has already ruled in their favor. Subscribe to this channel because this is what we do here. We do not stop at the sign. We read what the sign opened. And leave me one comment, tell me, which witness hit you hardest? And what is the first stone you are going to lay tomorrow morning? I will see you in the next one.